Ever feel like your brain is like drowning in information, trying to juggle a million things at once?
Yeah, like it's buffering.
Totally. So today, we're going on a deep dive into how our brains actually process all that information, all this stuff coming at us every single day. We're using this article, How the Human Brain Processes Information, as our guide.
Always good to have a guide, right?
Absolutely, especially when we're talking about something as complex as the brain. This article, though, it really breaks things down in a way that makes sense.
The cool thing is it's not just about like how a brain works. It's about how your brain, the one you're using right now to listen to us, actually does its thing.
Right, and that thing it's doing is pretty impressive. We're talking about 86 billion neurons firing away up there.
86 billion. Can you even imagine that?
It's more than, get this, more than there are stars in the Milky Way.
Mind-blowing. And here's the thing. Each one of those tiny neurons is like a little messenger, sending signals, electrical, chemical, the whole shebang.
And it's those signals that basically help us make sense of, well, everything.
Exactly. It's like this incredible communication network happening in our heads all the time.
So it all starts with our senses, right? But this article made me think about it differently.
How so?
Well, we usually think of our senses as separate, right? Like, I see a tree, I hear a bird, I smell the flowers. But our brains don't just stop there.
It's not just about the individual senses, it's about how they all come together.
Right. Exactly. The article talks about walking through a park, which I thought was a really cool example because it shows how all our senses work together. You've got the sights, obviously, trees, flowers, maybe a squirrel running up a tree.
And then you've got the sounds of like birds chirping, kids laughing on the playground, maybe a dog barking in the distance.
And then there's the smell of like freshly cut grass or, that earthy smell after it rains.
And you might even feel the sun on your skin or, I don't know, the rough bark of a tree if you touch it.
And our brain takes all of that, all those different sensations, and it weaves them together into this single experience. It's not just that I'm seeing a tree, it's that I might be remembering climbing trees as a kid.
Or knowing that that specific type of tree is an oak tree or something.
Or even just feeling a sense of calm because, being in nature always chills me out.
Right. It's amazing how our brains can do that all at once without us even realizing it.
It's like our senses are gathering ingredients, and then our brain is back there like a chef, whipping up this incredible multi-sensory meal.
I like that, a multi-sensory meal for the brain. It's not just one flavor, it's this whole explosion of taste and texture and aroma, and our brain puts it all together.
And it does it so fast. Like this article talks about neurons passing information along like a relay race.
A relay race for your brain.
Right, and these races are happening in milliseconds. So you can picture it like this. You see someone walking towards you, right?
Okay, I'm picturing it. I see them.
Okay, so those neurons in your eyes, they see the person's shape, their clothes, their hair, and they're like, boom, passing that information on to other neurons.
Okay, the baton's being passed.
And then those neurons are recognizing, hey, that's your friend.
Right? And then maybe even pulling up memories of past experiences with that friend, like what you did last time you hung out, or even just what they're like.
All within seconds.
Our brains are nonstop, always working behind the scenes.
I know. And to think we don't even have to tell them what to do.
Autopilot.
Exactly. Which makes you wonder, if they're this good at processing information without us even trying, what else could they do if we, actually learn to be more deliberate about it?
That is a great question, and it's something we'll definitely delve into more as we go along. But first, let's talk brain regions.
I thought you'd never ask. I used to think of different brain regions like separate departments. Like idle sight, Yander sound, nobody talk to each other, stay in your lane.
Bureaucracy of the brain.
Right. But as it turns out, our brains are way more collaborative than that.
Oh, yeah, way more. It's not like a bunch of separate offices. It's more like, I don't know, one of those open plan offices where everyone's working together.
More of a team effort.
Definitely. And, each region has its own specialty, but they're constantly communicating and collaborating.
Give us an example.
Okay, so the occipital lobe, that's like the visual processing center, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you're in a crowded room and you hear your name called.
Okay, I'm there. It's my birthday party.
Perfect. So your temporal lobe, which is in charge of auditory processing, it hears your name, right?
Okay. I'm listening.
And then those two regions, they actually communicate with each other, which allows you to turn towards the sound of your name being called.
Wow. So it's not just my ears hearing, it's my brain making sense of it, connecting it to what I'm seeing.
Exactly. It's teamwork. And it happens all the time.
No wonder a good song can bring back a memory so vividly, right?
Yeah.
Like You hear a certain tune, and suddenly you're back at your high school dance or something.
Right. That's your brain regions working together, connecting sound to memory to
So
emotion.
it's a symphony.
Exactly. Each part working together to create this beautiful, complex experience. So we've got 86 billion neurons working like a relay team and different brain regions jamming out like a symphony orchestra.
It's a lot. So much going on up there.
It is. But here's the question. What happens to all that information once it's been processed? Where does it all go?
Right. We got to store it somewhere.
That's where memory comes in. Think of it like your brain has two storage spaces. Okay?
Okay, I'm picturing it like a computer or something, right?
Kinda. You've got your short-term memory, which is like, the sticky note on your brain's fridge, right?
So like a quick reminder, buy milk.
Exactly. You need it for a bit, then toss it. Then there's long-term memory. That's more like, whoa, those massive library archives, yeah.
Full of old photo albums and like
Yeah.
yearbooks and stuff.
You got it. That phone number someone just rattled off while you were driving. Sticky note material gone if you don't jot it down fast.
Oh, I feel that.
Oh.
But that epic vacation last year, those photos you keep looking at,
Yeah.
that's in the archives forever.
Exactly. And here's the cool part. The more you access those memories, looking at those pics, telling stories about the trip.
The stronger they become in our brains. Is
Ah.
that what you're saying?
Spot on. It's like imagine a path in a forest. The more you walk it, the clearer it gets, easier to follow, right?
So it's not just about storing information. It's also about how accessible it is,
Mhm.
how easily we can recall it when we need to.
Exactly. And that's thanks to this amazing thing called synaptic plasticity. Basically, it means the connections between our neurons, those little messengers, they actually get physically stronger the more they're used.
Whoa, so our brains are literally rewiring themselves based on what we do and what we experience. That's why.
I know, right? And it's happening all the time. So no wonder studying for a test actually works. It's like you're literally building those pathways in your brain.
The more you study, the more defined those pathways become, and the easier it is to access that information when it's time for the test.
Right. But it's not just about, memorizing facts. It's about everything we experience. Every new skill you learn, every conversation you have, it's all shaping your brain at a physical level.
That's kind of empowering when you think about it, right? We have a say in how our brains develop.
Yeah.
But, okay, so we've got all this information coming in through our senses, being processed, stored in our memory banks.
Right. It's not just sitting there idle, is it?
Exactly. Our brains are using that information to, make decisions, big and small, all day long.
And those decisions, they're influenced by, everything we've been talking about, all that sensory input, the memories we've built up over time, even our emotions at that very moment.
It's like our brain is doing this crazy calculation, factoring in all these different variables to help us figure out what to do.
It's true. The article actually uses the example of choosing something to eat off a menu, which I thought was so relatable.
Oh, tell me about it. I'm the most indecisive person ever when it comes to menus.
Right. You're staring at all these options, and it's like, what am I in the mood for? What did I have yesterday? What haven't I tried?
And then there's that little voice whispering, get the fries, get the fries.
Exactly. Our cravings, our emotional state, it all plays a role. So even a decision that seems simple, like what to have for dinner, it's actually this really complex process happening in our brains.
Wild. So whether it's a life-changing decision or just figuring out what to eat, our brains are using the same incredible system to help us navigate it all. Speaking of navigating, this whole conversation about memory and decision-making, it makes you realize how important focus is. Like, if our brains are constantly being bombarded with information, how do we even decide what to pay attention to?
Right. It's like, how do we keep our brains from turning into like those old school computers with the spinning rainbow wheel of doom?
Exactly. And how do we make sure our brains are, like, running the latest software,
Yeah.
being as efficient as possible? It's like our brains are trying to download a million things at once, and sometimes the Wi-Fi just can't handle it.
And then everything crashes. But seriously, that's where focus comes in, right? It's like, how do we make sure our brains are using their processing power effectively? And this article had a great analogy about attention being like a flashlight beam. Have you ever thought about it that way?
I love that, because when you're really focused, it's like that beam is laser sharp,
Right.
illuminating exactly what you need to see.
Right. But then let's be real. Most of the time, it's more like,
Like someone gave a 5-year-old that flashlight at a disco.
Exactly. It's like, ooh, shiny. Ooh, what's that noise? Ooh, I wonder what's for dinner.
Our brains are easily distracted, especially these days with, like, notifications and emails and, like the entire internet constantly vying for our attention.
It's true. And when we try to focus on too many things at once, that beam, it just scatters.
Totally. It's like trying to read a book in a room full of flickering lights. You might catch a few words here and there, but you're not really absorbing anything.
And that's when we start to feel overwhelmed, right? Like we're running on fumes, even if we haven't really done that much.
It's like our brains are stuck in overdrives, but we're not actually getting anywhere. But the good news is we're not powerless against this.
Yeah. Not at all. Once you understand how your brain processes information, how it focuses, you can actually start to, like, take control of the process.
It's like learning the rules of the game so you can finally start winning.
Right, exactly. It starts with being mindful of what causes your focus to waver in the first place. Like, do you get sucked into social media every time you get a notification?
Oh, 100%. My phone is like a magnet for my attention sometimes.
Right. So maybe it's about like silencing those notifications or even just putting your phone in another room while you're trying to work.
So simple, but
Yeah.
so hard to actually do.
It takes practice, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. Just like any other skill, the more you exercise your focus muscle, the stronger it gets.
So what's a good starting point for someone who's like ready to ditch the disco lights and get that laser focus back?
Well, remember that thing we were talking about earlier with focusing on one sense at a time?
Oh yeah, like really paying attention to the taste of your food
Huh.
instead of just shoveling it in while you scroll through Instagram.
Exactly. Make it a point tonight to engage all your senses during dinner. Notice the aroma of the food, the colors on your plate, the textures. Really savor each bite. It's a simple exercise, but it can make a big difference in training your brain to be more present, more focused.
I love that. And it's something anyone can do. You know, it's funny, we go our whole lives with these incredibly powerful organs in our heads,
Yeah.
but most of us have no idea how they actually work. And then we stumble across an article like this, and it's like this whole new world opens up.
It really does. It's like all of a sudden you realize you have this amazing supercomputer at your disposal and you just need to learn how to use it.
And knowing that we have the power to influence how our brains work, how they process information, make decisions, even how they age, that's pretty incredible. So to our listener out there, the next time you feel like your brain is about to go into information overload, remember what we talked about today. You are not at the mercy of your own brain. You have the power to hit the pause button, refocus that flashlight beam, and choose where you want to direct your energy. Thanks for joining us in this deep dive. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing in all the best ways.